What's going on, everyone? I'm just an average American here today to react and learn about the timeline of the Queen's funeral arrangements, if you want to say, and more specifically, the next 10 days following the death of the Queen. You know, it kind of makes sense to me that there are procedures and policies and traditions in place that are kind of designed in there to be followed in the event of the death of the Queen. Actually, for a long time was recommended videos on YouTube, funny enough, like that are years old about what happens when in the event of the death of the Queen. And I always didn't want to watch them. I was like, that's a little somber, a little sad to think about, and kind of unnecessary to learn at this point. But unfortunately, the day has finally come, right? Where, unfortunately, the Queen has passed away. And I think it is time to learn about what happens after that, how the UK transitions to a new monarch, the new king, and a little more specifically about the burial and funeral arrangements around Queen Elizabeth. So that's what I've pulled up here today. I'm very interested to learn about.
Yesterday, Queen Elizabeth II sadly passed away.
Okay, so this video is actually Queen Elizabeth passed away about 3 or 4 days ago. At the time that this video here is made, this was made September 9th, about 2 days ago, but I assume it's still accurate information.
Having served as Britain's monarch for 70 years, she worked
Yeah.
alongside 15 prime ministers from
15 prime ministers. When you think of it like that, man.
Churchill to Truss. She's been the cornerstone
Wow.
of the country for the entirety of my lifetime, and for the lifetime of most Brits alive right now.
That is so important, and it's so applicable to the United States. She's been the queen, and Americans, she's the symbol Americans think of when they think of the UK, Great Britain, England, and it's been that way for so long. It's been that way forever, as far as I'm concerned, in my narrow point of view.
So it's understandable why many are feeling significant grief following her passing,
Yeah.
with some serious confusion about what happens next for the country. So in this video,
Right. And I do think that is a way of kind of coping with some of this and moving forward, is kind of understanding there's a period to mourn, which is totally understandable, and time should be taken for that, and then there's a time to kind of figure out, well, what comes next.
we're going to try and clear that up and put people's minds at ease.
Okay.
This
Sounds
is the
good.
official timeline of proceedings for the next 10 days.
Whoa. They managed to make some kind of chart that this looks like some kind of mathematics exam or something.
Starting with her passing yesterday. Let's run through it now. The official
Okay.
planning documents, known as Operation London Bridge, refer to the day that the Queen dies as D-Day.
Operation London Bridge. That's a serious code name? That's a children's kind of lullaby song. London Bridge is falling down in America. So it's kind of a silly name to an American. But anyway.
On which a number of things happen. Now, the first sign we got yesterday that something was wrong was around 1 p.m, when a
Yeah.
message from the palace emerged warning about the Queen's health. Shortly afterwards, it was announced
Yeah, this was exactly the same as in America. If you have an iPhone, you get pop-ups from all the Time magazine and CNN and stuff popping up all the time, and a major headline just started popping up all day on American cell phones. The Queen is ill. The Queen's not well. Members of her family are going to visit her, and everyone was like, "What? Huh?"
that pretty much all of the royal family were headed for Balmoral, the Queen's royal residence in Aberdeenshire, Scotland.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't realize she actually had a residence in Scotland, and that she was there. Is that just where she happened to be at the time? That's pretty interesting. I'm gonna have to look at Balmoral at some point. Huh.
Now, people began to grow more concerned as the afternoon progressed. with
Yes.
The BBC cancelling all programming on BBC One in favour of rolling news coverage, and anchors on all channels swapping their outfits for black ties and dresses to reflect a more sombre mood.
Yeah, they probably were starting to inform the media, the press beforehand, even. And a lot of Americans were starting to speculate that something had happened, something serious.
People's fears then became a reality just after 6:30 p.m. when it was announced that the Queen had indeed died. That announcement on the BBC looked like this.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Wow.
The palace has just issued this statement. It says the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the...
Yeah, I mean, it's not fun to listen to the details, but you always hope that it's peaceful and whatnot, and with loved ones around you. That is always good.
Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow.
With the announcement now official and the family customarily posting the official notification of the Queen's passing on the gates of Buckingham Palace,
Yeah, I heard there's like official ways that they're supposed to report the death of the king or queen with official postings and communications and all that. The American news media really has been following up on this a lot. Yeah.
the plans went into full gear. As expected, the UK's new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, who was only appointed by the Queen on Tuesday, made a speech outside of number 10.
Right. I don't know anything about Liz Truss, other than that she's the new prime minister? Now that a replacement for Boris Johnson, if I'm not mistaken? Americans don't know anything about her at all, but it is interesting how she just got her position as prime minister and already has this very unusual situation going on.
We're all devastated by the news that we have just heard from Balmoral. Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built.
Yeah.
Our country has grown and flourished under her reign. Through thick and thin, Queen Elizabeth II provided us with the stability and the strength that we needed. She was the very spirit of Great Britain.
I actually heard that people in Great Britain got 2 weeks of work off for mourning and personal reflection and taking time and all that. Is that true? 2 weeks off?
And that spirit will endure.
Shortly afterwards, the leader of the opposition Labour Party, Keir Starmer, made a similar speech. Personally, though, the most affecting speech wasn't from either of the major British leaders, but rather from Justin Trudeau. As you might know, the Queen was Canada's head of state, and as such...
Yeah, sometimes I forget about the relationship between the UK monarchy and Canada, and the long history, and the relationship between all the royalty there. Americans, don't get me started. Americans don't even know the first thing about what UK royalty and the British Empire and its relationship to many, many nations around the world, actually, from what I understand. So, yeah, I didn't even think about this.
Trudeau and the Queen met on a number of occasions, meaning unlike Britain's rotating cast of prime ministers, it seems that Trudeau was able to forge a real relationship with her.
She served us all with strength and wisdom for 70 years as we grew into the diverse, optimistic, responsible, ambitious, and extraordinary country we are today.
Yeah, that's true. Thinking about 70 years is such a long amount of time for a human being to be in a position that it's almost outrageous to think about how she really was there, the Queen, while Canada and the modern United States, and the modern United Kingdom all came to be developed in the so much technology has been born in the last 70 years, like this global connection of the internet and everything that goes along with, that Queen Elizabeth really was this like tie to the past, and there through everything. It's wild to think about.
As her 12th Canadian Prime Minister, I'm having trouble believing that my last sit-down with her was my last. I will so miss those chats. She was thoughtful, wise, curious, helpful, funny.
I will say he's pretty good at, Trudeau is pretty good at making it clear. He's looking down at a piece of paper for notes, but he's making it pretty obvious that he's speaking from within his mind, thoughts that he's actually having, and he's looking around the room as he talks. It's just admiring, for a second. Good public speaking skills and all that.
And so much more. She was one of my favorite people in the world, and I will miss her so.
So, with some powerful remarks now made and the country beginning to mourn the Queen's passing, what happens now?
Yes.
Well, you might remember that
What happens now? Operation London Bridge.
the Queen's death is referred to as D-Day in official planning documents.
D-Day? That's kind of a weird, because that's the same name as what Americans call, that day in during the World War, where Americans attacked a beach in Normandy and there was a lot of casualties. We call that D-Day. So it has a really, really negative connotation in America. We have a D-Day already. So it's interesting. That's just what I think of when I see D-Day.
Well, the subsequent days are referred to as D plus a number. Essentially, as these plans were written a long time in advance, they needed a code to refer to the passage of time without assigning actual dates.
Okay.
Although
Yeah, they kind of thought about this, huh? Not surprisingly, this is something that logistically you have to think about. It's a huge deal, and you don't want to be caught off guard when the day, and unfortunately the day, has come.
now know what days each of these correspond with.
Yes, Thursday the 8th. Today is the 12th. Okay, so D plus 4. Yesterday was D plus 3.
It's
Got
worth
it.
saying, though, that a lot of these details are slightly up in the air at the moment. These plans might have been in the works for years, but some of the details are still kept secret. And with the Queen's death only being announced fairly late in the day on Thursday, some things which were supposed to happen on D-Day,
Right.
the day of her death, weren't able to happen before the close of the day.
Right, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
So
Okay.
while we did see a number of announcements,
I'm just getting, through American news, I'm just getting like the most random updates ever of what's going on in the UK and with King Charles and where Queen Elizabeth's coffin is at right now, and just very sporadic updates.
the Queen's family heading to Balmoral, and condolences from world leaders, we didn't see the Minister of Defence arranging gun salutes or a minute's silence as expected.
Huh.
Neither did the Prime Minister hold a meeting with the new King at 6 p.m., at least partly because the announcement actually happened after that.
Right.
Nor did King Charles III address the nation as was planned. The final plan, which didn't happen on D-Day, was a service of remembrance in St. Paul's Cathedral.
Wow. I'm pretty sure some of this has happened as of now. Gun salutes. I think there was a minute of silence. I'm sure the Prime Minister has met the King, obviously, by now. The King's address, which I actually reacted to yesterday. It was a very good address. And I don't know about the other.
The plan was for the Prime Minister and other ministers to attend, but due to time constraints, it wasn't able to happen on D-Day. Ultimately, all of these plans are only plans, and while we can expect other arrangements to be more strictly adhered to, it's understandable that not everything is going to run perfectly smoothly when it comes to something so rare and momentous.
Yeah, you do have to be able to adapt, but it's good to have a rough outline like this, obviously, very helpful. And I am curious what is going on for the next That was like the first day right there. There's still 9 more days to go through. I think as of now, they're pretty much set on when the Queen's funeral is going to be. It's going to be September 19th, a little over a week from now. So is that exactly 10 days after the 8th? No, that's 11 days. So yeah, there is some flexibility going on here.
Regardless, with D-Day plans now in full swing, the UK officially entered a period of mourning which is set to last until the Queen's official funeral. Now,
Okay.
official plans for the Queen's funeral were set to be unveiled on the day of the Queen's passing, but as you're probably expecting by now, circumstances changed. So, as of the time of writing, we don't yet know for sure when the funeral will take place. But
Oh, they don't even know. It's like I'm living in the future. Wow. I'm like a time traveler. Well, buddy, it's happening on the 19th, but I don't blame you because you are stuck in the past.
it's expected to happen on D+10, or Sunday the 18th. Now,
Close.
there was some speculation about whether the public could get a bank holiday on the day of the Queen's funeral, with some believing that a day off was a right upon the Queen's passing.
I would expect the day to be off on the Queen's funeral, just as an American not knowing anything about anything. That's one way to look at it. I would really have expected everyone in the UK to have the day off for the funeral.
Unfortunately for those hoping for an extra day off, that's not guaranteed. Nowhere within Queen's London Bridge plans is there a guarantee of a bank holiday. And while it would be marked
Oh,
as
wait, a bank holiday? What does that mean? A bank holiday?
some believing that the public could get a 10, or Sunday the 18th. Now, there was some speculation about whether the public could get a bank holiday on the day of the Queen's funeral.
A bank holiday? Does that just mean a recognized holiday, a paid holiday on the day of the funeral? Okay.
Queen's London Bridge plans is there a guarantee of a bank holiday. And while it would be marked as an official day of mourning, a bank holiday would be at the discretion of the Prime Minister.
Oh,
now,
just
that's not
do it.
exactly helped by
Just do it, Minister,
the
please.
fact that Liz Truss isn't the most bank holiday friendly PM we've ever had, nor the fact that the funeral is likely to land on a weekend anyway. So
Well, it's gonna land on a Monday now, if it is on the 19th. So maybe it should be a holiday.
if your main interest in these proceedings was getting a day off work, you're likely to be disappointed. Regardless, what happens today and in the other days between the Queen's death and the funeral, which officially ends the mourning period? Well,
Yeah.
we can expect a few things which were missed out of yesterday's schedule to make a reappearance today. With the gun salutes, the service, more details about the funeral, and an official address from the new king, all expected to be on the cards today.
Yeah, and all of that did end up happening.
Parliament will likely also meet to pay their first condolences, as well as officially closing parliamentary business until the Queen's funeral. Now,
There were actually a ton of live streams on YouTube when I was looking around the other day. This is 4 days. Right now, we're at 4 days after the death of the Queen. There have been live streams going on every day of the House of Commons, the House of Lords, all them doing exactly what they're saying right here, paying respects and whatnot.
this is obviously unfortunate.
It's actually pretty cool that we live in a time where you can just go on YouTube and watch it if you want. It's actually amazing.
Unfortunate timing, given the current crises facing the UK politically, and the fact that Truss has been in business until the Queen's funeral. Now, this is obviously unfortunate timing, given the current crises facing the UK politically, and the
Yeah.
fact that Truss has barely got her foot in the door at number 10.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, this is bad timing, isn't it? Americans aren't aware of any kind of turmoil or political things going on in the UK or the new prime minister. Americans aren't aware of any of this, but I understand better than most how the timing of all this is pretty bad.
But official custom does suggest that parliamentary business will now be suspended for 10 days. Then on
Oh wait, Parliament is just going to be closed for 10 days? Wow.
Saturday, the Accession Council are expected to meet at 10 a.m. for the principal proclamation of the new king. the official process to make Charles the king. With
Yeah, this happened. Right. There was an official process of Charles becoming king in a traditional official kind of way on the throne.
them set to read the proclamation from a balcony in St. James's Palace.
Yeah, this happened too. Yeah.
Now, many expected this to happen on D+1, but due to the overrunning plans, it's now expected to happen on Saturday, D+2.
Yeah.
Anyway, by this point, the new king will likely have also met with the Prime Minister, her cabinet, the leader of the opposition, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the Dean of Westminster.
Wow.
Now, as the Queen died outside of London, the following days will simultaneously see the Queen's coffin making its way back to Buckingham Palace.
Right, look at that. Oh, the Queen passed away in Balmoral in Scotland. That was one of the furthest away possible places she could have been from London. So it's almost like nice that they're going to kind of transport her throughout a large section of Great Britain, from north to south. It's kind of like you can pay your respects. I don't know if they're going to make it kind of a public thing, a public transportation with like a parade or what. I don't know how that's all going to work, but it is interesting how this ended up happening, the circumstance here.
More specifically, as the Queen died in Scotland, this activates a sub-plan within Operation London Bridge called Operation Unicorn,
Oh man, they really thought of everything.
named after Scotland's official animal.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that the official animal of Scotland is a unicorn. Because there are no fictional animals in American, like, there's no, if that makes any sense. I was not aware that a fictional creature could be like a national symbol. But, you know, I'm sure there's stuff with other mythological creatures, and the unicorn, what I didn't understand is the unicorn is a pretty serious, like, mythological figure in Scotland, which is much different than America.
Which is, and this is totally serious, a unicorn. This means that, according to The Guardian, the Queen's coffin will be driven to the Palace of Holyrood in Edinburgh on D+2. Then on D+3,
I mean, I think on D+3 yesterday, the Queen was still in Scotland, from what I saw in the news.
there's expected to be a ceremonial procession from Holyrood along the Royal Mile to St. Giles's Cathedral, where a ceremony will take place.
Okay.
Meanwhile, on Sunday, King Charles is expected to head to Westminster Hall, where he'll receive a motion of condolence before flying to Edinburgh for his first official act as monarch,
Oh.
the ceremony of the Kings in Holyrood, before joining the Queen's coffin for the ceremony at St. Giles's Cathedral.
I don't know if this has happened or not yet. We're kind of getting to the present now.
On Monday, D+4, the Queen's coffin will be transported to Edinburgh Waverley Station, where it will be
Okay.
transported overnight to London St Pancras, before finally making its way to Buckingham Palace on D+5. Now,
Okay, there we go. Now we're talking about today, tomorrow. By Tuesday, the Queen's body is going to be in back at Buckingham Palace. Okay, wow.
we should note that other reports suggest the Queen's coffin will be flown back due to extenuating circumstances in this instance. Our initial plans do suggest that the coffin will be transported via the royal train from Edinburgh to London.
Man.
Regardless, from Buckingham
A lot of stuff.
Palace, the Queen's coffin will be officially moved to Westminster Hall in a gun carriage, part of a large ceremony that would have been rehearsed the previous day.
I'm actually not familiar with Westminster Hall. I've heard that name. I'm not sure what the historical significance of it is, but it must be pretty huge if that's going to be... I don't know if that's the final resting place of the coffin, but they're bringing it there after Buckingham Palace, which I thought might be the end.
For the next 5 days, the coffin will be laid to rest in Westminster Hall
Oh, wow, there you go.
and is expected to be open to the public for 23 hours of the day, allowing people to pay their respects.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that. That there was going to be a period to allow the public to pay respects. is that going to be, I'm sure it'll be civil, but chaotic, if you know what I mean. There's going to be just so many people. This is such a huge deal. This person meant so much to so many people. She stood for so much to so many people. I could see this being one of the biggest funerals ever. Untold amounts of people wanting to go visit her final resting place, of course. So I didn't actually know that was going to be a thing.
Now, let's rewind a moment, because while the coffin is making its way down to London on Monday, the new king is headed to Hillsborough Castle in Northern Ireland, and then to St Anne's Cathedral in Belfast for a message of condolence and a service of condolence and prayer. There.
Wow, interesting how they had the foresight to plan. They had planned out the king's travel plans, which is going to be different than the Queen's casket, and he has to travel to all these places to give condolences, you know. Sure, he's still kind of grieving and trying to wrap his head around being king and all that.
Then on D+7, or Thursday the 15th, the king is expected to head to Wales for another message of condolence, this time at the Welsh Assembly, and another service at the cathedral in Cardiff. Now, we don't know how the king plans to get to Cardiff, but the RMT Union have announced that strikes that were planned on the railways on this Thursday and Saturday 17th will be cancelled to avoid disrupting anyone during the time of mourning.
Well, that's nice. I am aware of a lot of labor strikes going on in the UK. Most Americans have no clue about all that. I had heard about this, but it is nice that the unions and the striking workers are kind of paying respects in their own way by saying, hey, this is important to us, but we're not going to go on strike and close down railways and transport during the king and queen's funeral processions and all that. So that's nice.
It's also on Thursday 15th that guests are expected to begin arriving for the funeral, with the king likely welcoming governors and prime ministers from across the Commonwealth on D+8, with overseas guests and VIPs expected to attend the lying in state.
Yeah, I'm positive President Biden is going to the funeral. I think I heard that yesterday.
On D+9. As I mentioned earlier, the timeline isn't 100% clear, but it's expected that the funeral will be held on D+10, or Sunday 18th. Now, getting to this point will require an immense amount of planning from the government, something which could prove to be Truss's first and very unexpected challenge.
Yeah.
According to Politico's reporting, the biggest burden will land on 3 departments. The Foreign Office will be responsible for coordinating the arrival of MPs, heads of state, and VIPs.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff you usually don't have to think about as a common person. The logistics of planning and organizing an event like this. One of the biggest events ever, by the way. So I get it.
As well as dealing with the huge volume of tourists expected in London. The
tourists.
Home Office will be in charge of security and intelligence.
I hope it is not too crazy, you know, kind of civil. But my God, the amount of tourists that are going to come, yeah, I just hope it's respectful.
Something which is especially important given heightened terror risks. And the third major burden will be placed on the Department of Transport, who, despite the RMT's decision, will still need to handle massive overcrowding on the transport network, especially within London. Now, hopefully the new appointed ministers can handle all of that pressure.
Yeah, this would be a huge, massive undertaking for an administration that is a well-oiled machine already, but instead we have a new prime minister taking on a brand new task, one of the most unprecedented, biggest events ever. So. And
on D+10, the funeral will be able to progress smoothly, with the Queen's coffin expected to be processed from Westminster Hall to Westminster Abbey on D+10.
Is Westminster Abbey the final burial place?
Before a minute's silence is held across the country. Once the Queen reaches the Abbey, a 1-hour service is expected to pray for the Queen and remember her service.
Yeah.
After which, a ceremony will transport her coffin through Hyde Park before
Okay.
being transferred from a gun carriage to a state hearse to then travel on to Windsor. Once in Windsor, a committal service is set to be held in St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle.
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of services going on. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. This is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of deal. But yeah, I still don't understand if there's an official spot where royalty is buried. I've never heard of this.
Where the coffin will then be lowered into the royal vault.
Okay, the royal vault in
Once in Windsor, a committal service
Windsor. Okay,
will be lowered into the royal vault.
got it.
After all of this, the UK's official mourning period will be over, and at some point in the following days, the King's official coronation will take place.
Oh, right. Coronation. I've heard of this. As a matter of fact, the coronation of Queen Elizabeth, I think, is maybe the first televised, or definitely the first one on YouTube. That's all I can relate to. The coronation of King Charles III. Right. That hasn't happened. That needs to happen. Okay.
As I said, all of this is based on pre-planning documents, as well as reporting from outlets like Politico and The Guardian. But
Yeah.
we've already seen how circumstances can throw off events. Regardless, I hope this outline is helpful and helps you better understand what's set to happen over the coming days, as well as hopefully setting your mind at ease. If you do want to follow things more
Yeah, that did. That was very helpful. That was very helpful. TLDR news. I liked that. I just want to check on... I want to Google Queen Elizabeth funeral. Not full name. Not Funko Pop, but funeral, unfortunately. Oh, when is it? Ahead of London funeral. Does it say when? It is... Here we go. Ahead of her funeral in London on September 19th. That's what I thought. Looks like it is going to fall on a Monday. So I don't know how that is going to work logistically for everyone who isn't going to get the day off. But anyway, this timeline leading up to the final burial of Queen Elizabeth was extremely helpful to me. Again, I'm not surprised that there is a very detailed, intricate plan that was put into place and really carefully thought out. Or maybe it's largely based on tradition. Maybe this has happened before. Kings and queens have passed away and stuff has had to happen. So this is probably largely based on that as well, now that I think about it. But it's interesting to learn, nonetheless, about all the ins and outs of how this works. Obviously, I've never experienced any event like this in my lifetime, and I think that goes for everyone, because the Queen has just always been there, as I've said. So this is certainly unprecedented times, and it definitely helps people, I think, to cope and mourn properly when the more they can kind of understand and think about the future and appreciate the past, of course. Yeah, there's a lot to it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this reaction, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the United Kingdom, Great Britain, culture, events, things I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.